I'm Keith Cahoon. I lead what we term our AI-driven enterprise business unit at Juniper Networks for the UK and Ireland. And it's really interesting because I'm going to touch on a few points, particularly which David raised in terms of how to apply AI to certain disciplines. And what I'm really here to talk about today is applying AI to the discipline of deploying and operating large corporate networks. This is Andrew Negg, adjunct professor at Stanford University, one of the co-founders of Google Brain. This phrase has kind of taken hold, I think, in the market, that AI is certainly going to transform most industries, and he can't think of many that it's not going to transform. I have seen personally AI transform the network industry over the past 7 to 8 years that I've been with Juniper and Mist on this journey. But I think it's interesting as well because this is kind of alluding to the fact that networks have previously been referred to on occasions as a utility, the next utility, so turning on the lights or turning on the tap to provide water at home. And I'm thinking about this in terms of, okay, what's that mean to a network? Well, I've got really low water pressure at home. The water works. I turn on the tap. My shower, my ensuite is really poor water pressure. And it's really annoying. I have a very frustrating experience every time I have a service. So a network that just provides connectivity today is no longer good enough. It has to be about what is the end user experience of every single device and human, if there's a human being connected to that device, connected to that network every minute of every day. And if that's not working well, which is evidenced really accurately by this Zoom or Microsoft Teams call, I'm not sure which application this is, if it's not performing well, and in the case of Microsoft Teams, a little pop-up comes up at the top saying you've got a poor network connection. Everyone blames the network, always. So we're here to dispel that myth in some ways. The good news is there's absolutely a solution for this, and I'll come on to this. That's really what this is all about. Going back nearly 10 years to the day, the creation of a startup company called Mist Systems, which I joined just under 8 years ago. The co-founder, Bob Friday, was the chief technology officer at Cisco for the previous decade. You may have heard of that company. Bob is effectively the godfather of Wi-Fi. He created Cisco's enterprise wireless switching and routing business. He had a vision 10 years ago, which was, we're delivering these networks for the largest organizations in the world, but we genuinely don't understand what the end user experience is, and that was becoming a problem. So we exited stage left from Cisco with $80 million of funding, give or take, over 2 or 3 years, and built a platform for the first time that was tasked with understanding proactively that end user experience. In order to do this, he figured out that you needed to extract telemetry from everywhere you could possibly get it to understand what that is and measure it. Once you consumed that telemetry in a modern cloud platform, you needed to be able to provide a response proactively in the same way that the most skilled network engineers in the world, the response that they would generate. And I'll touch on Marvis, which is our virtual network assistant, later. In order to do this, the architecture had to be fundamentally transformed. This could not be done on a small server or even a large server running in your comms rooms. This had to be abstracted and run in the modern cloud. This started with Wi-Fi, because that's Bob's heritage, and frankly, that's where most of the problems occurred in a modern enterprise network, because there's lack of visibility and control. But this now pervades all the way through the entire enterprise network stack, from Juniper, from wired and wireless access, through to wide area networks and SD-WAN. I'm going to touch on network admission control today, and there's a few interesting comments around security today, which have frightened the life out of me, but we'll touch on that from an access assurance and NAC point of view. And this does extend right the way into the data center, whether that's a private data center or Azure, AWS, or others. This is very much all the way from client to cloud, that full end-to-end experience. Take you back 10 years, the data, the telemetry. Our data scientists figured out really early that in order to do this accurately, we had to build a completely new framework. We call it service level expectations. This is data science created 10 years ago, and the platform's been learning and improving over the time. So then we can figure out, are the service levels being met for every single client that's on your network, every minute of every day, and we measure that experience every day. If there's a problem, we understand the baseline, we look for anomalies, and then we call out what's causing that in terms of immediate root cause analysis. So that sounds wonderful because you don't have to then take 1,000 help desk calls to figure out what's going wrong, what's causing the problem. This goes further, bearing in mind, still talking 10 years ago, it goes much further in terms of anomaly detection. Is this specific to a certain type of device? Is it specific to a new OS from Microsoft or from Apple or something else? Is this something that's unique to a certain device or more pervasive across the entire network? And even to the point where the system is proactively, the network is proactively capturing the evidence that you need in terms of the network operations teams, the evidence that you need that's not subjective, it's purely objective because it's based on client experience to go ahead and prove what that problem is to a level of dynamically capturing packets as the problems occur for users on your network. This isn't just catastrophic failures. This is that flicker of a light, low pressure on the water, that user experience problem. It's capturing packets then so you can go ahead and fix it. But we go much further. As I said, that was 10 years ago. These days, we have a virtual network assistant to make your lives even easier. So we call it Marvis. This is literally digging into that rich telemetry data, which is the framework around service level expectations. And it's looking at everything from client software. So we have mobile applications that you can embed, which effectively take Marvis right down to a client level. Layer 1 issues, identifying bad cables proactively. We don't even need Juniper switches to do that. Plug in an AP and we'll tell you if the cable's sufficient and causing problems. All the way through to those core services of gaining IP addresses, DNS resolution. We'll tell you proactively if a piece of hardware looks as though it's going to fail before it fails. I think that's really novel. I'm sure some of you have had many hours wasted in terms of calling first-line service desk with the vendors you work with already, trying to prove that there's a failure on the network. We're going to call you and tell us a failure that's going to happen in the future to allow you to plan for that. The same thing across switching, wide-area networking, all the way into that data center. We make it even easier for you to interface with the network by giving you a large language model-based Gen AI assistant. So your first-line service desks or any other users can start to ask Marvis some fairly basic questions, well, some fairly advanced questions, like why did Shane have a poor Microsoft Teams call yesterday at 3 p.m.? He had a board meeting. There were some external investors on that board meeting, and there was a real problem with Microsoft Teams. What was causing that? So because we have a modern cloud architecture, it's microservices based, it's literally designed to ingest data and make use of it. So in this case, we have a full integration with Microsoft in terms of Microsoft Teams. We do the same for Zoom and others. So we're pulling client information per user, per device, per session, audio, video, screen sharing, all of that data on a per user basis. We're also pulling into the cloud on top of that service level expectation framework that I referred to earlier. So now your network operations staff or even your first line service desk can understand exactly what was the problem that caused that issue with that Microsoft Teams call. Was it Microsoft Teams? Was it a slow response from the internet? Was it a problem uplink on the WAN service? Was it a Wi-Fi interference problem? Was it a problem with the client? And of course, there's 101 other things that it could be. We're looking at all of those layers to take you right to that problem. We even track and record things like user-fed mean opinion scores. So it's subjective and objective, equally all correlated all together. I'm not going to play through all of it because I don't have time. I do have a team here today who can take you through demonstrations of all of this during lunch. We go even further. One of the things we learn from the value of this is, because all of this is fed from the clients that are connected to your network in real time, constantly, 24/7. But what if there are no clients on your network? What if you shut your businesses off at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and you come back at 9 a.m. the next day? What if something's gone wrong in between? So we've extended Marvis now to create the concept of digital twins, where we use our infrastructure. It's automatically learning the devices that are connected to your network during the day. It knows all of the different services that it needs to connect through to, authentication, getting IP addresses, hitting the VLANs, accessing the internet, accessing the applications that it needs to access. We're now doing that digitally on your behalf when everyone's gone home, constantly. You make a change to your network, security settings, firewall policies, make any change in the network, Marvis Digital Twins will test that all of those digital clients can access those digital assets and alert you to that fact, again, with packet level capture information, dynamically captured, and make you aware at the instant that happens, not at 9 a.m. when your business is being impacted by that. Changing gears slightly, I mentioned the next frontier that was absolutely ripe for disruption was access assurance and network admission control. So I am quite sure that many of you in the room will have on-premise based traditional network admission control platforms, perhaps from the likes of Cisco ICE, Aruba ClearPass, Forescout, and others. I've used and been involved in selling and servicing these systems for many, many years. I won't ask you to raise your hands, but very, very few customers I talk to enjoy the operational experience of running those types of systems, of managing the hardware, of managing the operating systems, of patching the vulnerabilities that often occur in these types of systems. And if you've got a large distributed organization, you've got to do that again and again and again. More often than not, when I come across detailed conversations around this, customers just shy away from touching it. It's working, just don't touch it. Otherwise, we're terrified of breaking it. What we did, what our founders did, the engineering team did, rather than acquire an actual product that already existed called Whitesand, we acquired the staff who built Whitesand, which is a modern cloud-based NAC platform, and we asked them to build this natively into our same cloud that's doing everything else. That gives us huge opportunities to provide an incredible level of operational and visibility into what's happening from an authentication and network admission control point of view. So at a very high level, what this looks like, and I think Sarah talked about machine-to-machine authentication, so we use RadSec to connect our infrastructure to our cloud. We can connect your third-party infrastructure, your Cisco, Aruba, Extreme, whatever you might run today. We can also deliver our cloud-based NAC platform on top of all of your existing infrastructure. But rather than traditional vendors who try and create this kind of security aspects of what the likes of Microsoft are doing with Intune and Enter ID from an MDM or UEM perspective, and from an identity perspective, well, why should we try and become the best at that? There are others out there who are far better than that than us. So we just seamlessly integrate with the services you're already using. So modern cloud platform hosted within the same cloud that's delivering the operational experience for everything else. And you get to continue to enjoy the simplicity of using Jamf and Intune and Enter ID and so on for all of your identity and MDM perspectives. We make this incredibly simple. That's interesting because the venue we're in today, I think fantastic, amazing building, the Royal College of Surgeons in England. The equivalent, and I guess competitor to this, the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland and in fact Scotland. We seem to have a monopoly on Royal College of Surgeons apart from this one, so we've got to speak to the team downstairs. So Kevin Brew, who runs infrastructure for the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, has deployed our network infrastructure across his campus. He recently invested and deployed our network admission control platform, moving away from his legacy Cisco ICE platform. He presented how he did this at a recent event that we held in London. He presented for 10 minutes, he demoed what he did, and then he basically said to the audience it took him longer to explain it than it took him to deploy it. So the level of simplicity around this is game-changing, and I really encourage you to speak to Amanda and Joe afterwards to see a bit more around that. So the real value of this is not just simplicity, but the fact that because this is now integrated into a single modern microservices cloud platform, your operational teams now get to see the entire client experience journey. So all the other stuff that we started with 10 years ago to understand client experience, add to this the complete authentication, network admission control journey, mobile device status, posture assessment, all of that stuff you're doing with your third parties like Microsoft. This is now all in the same place, with AI looking into all of this, so looking for those anomalies, looking for those problems, and alerting to you real time in terms of what you can go ahead to go and fix these types of issues. This isn't just for corporate devices. We're making it really simple, should you wish, to onboard staff bring your own devices as well. This is a problem we see. And we see in most cases, we see bring your own device just connecting to the guest network and getting in the way of serving customers, or lots of other workarounds, as I think we've discussed previously. So we're bringing out the ability very early next year to literally hit a captive portal, hit a single sign-on within your organization for your employees with their devices, go straight to via SAML, go straight to an authentication page where you could say, I'd like to onboard my device into the BYOD program, download an application, including a certificate, that will seamlessly connect you to the corporate network, allocate you into the bring your own device role, put you onto the appropriate VLAN, and you can access the BYOD services the organization deems you're able to access within that, completely seamlessly, very, very simply. And of course, it means completely avoiding the fact that you have to set people up on this. They do it themselves. More important to this, within this application sits the Marvis client. So this takes us right back to the start of that Marvis action story from client to cloud. This gives an extra layer of visibility within our operations platform, within your operations platform, to understand, has user experience been affected because of something happening on the client? Is the OS contributing to this? Is the client reporting a much lower signal strength on Wi-Fi than the network seems from the other end, and correlating those two things together? So hugely, hugely powerful. What's happened in the market over the past 10 years? So when I joined Mist Systems, as it was back in 2017, We were considered in terms of Wi-Fi and LAN infrastructure. We were already seen as a visionary by Gartner. Post-acquisition by Juniper, the following year, we moved directly into the leaders quadrant. For the last 4 years, we've been recognized by Gartner as absolutely, I'm not allowed to say number one, so I'm not saying number one, but I am saying highest in terms of our ability to execute on behalf of our customers and transform what they're doing in this space, but also in terms of the vision, the technology. This is game-changing stuff. Equally, and interestingly, and I'm not going to touch on it today because of time, we're also the only network company considered a leader in the world of indoor location services. So in a building like this, if you run large campuses, and a number of our large financial clients and higher education and healthcare clients do utilize this capability, we can provide to a mobile device turn-by-turn navigation, 1 to 2 meter location within sub-seconds, so you can have all sorts of interactive building experiences, like maybe finding a meeting room, finding colleagues, booking collaboration working spaces, and so on, a whole host of other types of services. Most importantly, what are the outcomes that this is delivering? I think David spoke about, why do you want to deploy AI? What's the opportunity here? There's 2 things front and center of why this platform was created and what we're driving for customers. The first is this does deliver a significantly better user experience. Every employee, every visitor, every member of staff, every customer, every patient, every student, whatever industries you work in, when you deploy this network, it is literally working on your behalf to make it better. Day one, and most other infrastructure vendors, day one's the best day you're ever going to get, and it gets worse from there. This literally improves itself because it's learning from user experience and it's proactively making changes to make that experience better. Equally important is in terms of the operational aspect of the back end of this. So David was talking about AI replacing humans. I think in some industries it probably is set to do that. But in the networking industry, we already have a problem. Between half and 2/3 of network engineers that exist in the UK, Europe, and the US today are set to retire within the next 5 years. And the industry is not recruiting enough engineers to backfill that. So there is a skill shortage, and that problem is getting worse. This is helping those skilled engineers and those coming into the industry to do so much more, because they're not having to do the mundane manual data collection, because we're doing all of that for you. But they are having to interpret the data they're getting, because we're giving the insights, the actions, which human beings, clever network engineers, still need to go in and act on. So here's some examples. We're absolutely seeing our larger retail clients deploy networks up to 10 times quicker, which is massive in terms of first market advantage. You think pop-up stores and so on, that's incredible advantage. ServiceNow, for instance, when they deployed our wireless only on top of their existing infrastructure, they reduced the number of employee-reported help desk tickets by 97%. When they deployed our LAN and our WAN platform on top of that, so alongside, they reported a 60% reduction in their capital expenditure, upfront, cash. They report a 70% reduction in OpEx. Who would like a 70% reduction in the cost of running the network over the next 5 years? I think most people would admit to that. Large logistics, global logistics company, again, similar type of operational experience, but here we're talking about the time it takes to resolve issues. Issues will still happen. This is not a fix-all. Issues will still occur from a network point of view. Most of them won't be the network, but the network will still be blamed. So when these issues occur, if you could reduce the time it takes to resolve them, in this case from 48 hours on average across all tickets to 2 hours, what's the impact to the users, the logistics hubs, in this case that are operating a 24/7 operation? What's the impact on the service desk, first, second, third line operations? So that is absolutely the experiences that we're delivering.